Hello and welcome to episode 76 of
Mo Money,
the Investing Economics Show for Millennials by a Millennial, where our goal is to educate, entertain, and empower a new generation of investors. I am, of course, your host, the nice suit wearing, knowledge sharing, good life living, advice given, investment advising, financial illiteracy despising, unbiased, the flyest, best looking host on every single coast, MC Mo. Now, let's get to the money. There has never been a more economically true statement than when the Wu-Tang Clan rapped, "Cash rules everything around me, queen, get the money, dollar bills, y'all." Not just on a personal level, but in international economics as well. The US dollar rules everything. Benjamins, bucks, dead presidents, guac. It is the king of the currencies, and with that title comes a lot of privilege. So what benefit does being the king currency award the United States and those that use and accept, as Ron Swanson described it, the most wonderful piece of paper in the world? The beginning of the US dollar's reign as the king of currency began in 1945 with the signing of the Bretton Woods Agreement amongst 44 allied nations. The agreement stated that all signing nations would value their currency based off the value of the US dollar, which at the time got its value from the United States' vast gold reserves in Fort Knox. To simplify it, all our allies were devastated after World War II, and they needed to rebuild. So to ensure that these countries could all trade and rebuild, there needed to be a stable monetary system, currencies that could be easily exchanged, and a way to help make international transactions easier. So since we had 3/4 of the world's gold supply at the time, a country that wasn't bombed out and depleted after the war, and a currency with the strongest purchasing power, the United States dollar was chosen to be the main reserve currency for most of the world. And that is still true today. The US dollar makes up 64% of measurable international reserves. So the reason why countries prefer to use the US dollar in transactions and keep dollars in their central bank reserves is that even though our president is an unpredictable moron, although we are $21 trillion in debt and an economy that is still recovering from the financial recession, we are still considered a stable economy and a relatively low-risk environment. So, what are the real pros and cons of the US dollar being one of the most widely used currencies in the world and the de facto world reserve currency? The first benefit is the United States government ability to run deficits and finance things like social programs and wars. Mostly wars. Big, beautiful, bloody wars. We can finance things by accruing a huge national debt because countries like China and Japan, who have large amount of US dollars, are willing to buy our debt because they'll make money, they view it as stable, and they have so many US dollars to spend, and they do not want to exchange them for their currencies because that would drive up the price of those currencies, making their exports to the USA more expensive and less competitive. The second benefit is the ability to run trade deficits. The US dollar is always in high demand, making its value higher than most currencies, making imports of other countries more attractive. These countries are happy to get their hands on dollars since they serve such a great function in the global economy, so they'll continue exporting their cheap goods to the United States. The third benefit is easy to access capital for United States companies. Just like the way countries purchase US Treasury bonds and other debt, foreign countries and companies also use their dollars to invest in American companies, which is a great advantage for American companies that they have access to such a large pool of investors looking to make the most of the dollars that they have on hand. The fourth benefit is avoiding inflation and hyperinflation. If a country's currency is not a main international reserve currency and they try to print more and more of it to pay for things like social programs, wars, etc., the massive influx of money into the system will cause the prices of things to rise and the money to become less valuable. The United States does not have this problem. We can print as much money as we please because we export our money off to the world's central banks, investors, etc., thereby avoiding inflation. Now, the truth is there is no immediate disadvantage to being the leading world reserve currency, but if the US dollar begins to slip in popularity, things could get bad for the United States. If we print too much money, people may lose trust in the dollar. Then they may turn to other currencies, so they'll trade their dollars for these other currencies, like the euro. They will push the dollar price down. If others all rush to do the same, the dollar would quickly lose all of its value. This would lead to things like hyperinflation, inability for the United States government to find buyers for their treasury bonds and debt. Exports would become very expensive, meaning we can no longer run trade deficits. So here's the bottom line. The benefit of the US dollar being the king of currency is only a benefit so long as it remains that way and does not lose its popularity. Since it's so widely used, other countries have a lot of incentive to help the US dollar keep its value. And we obviously have that same incentive, but that's only until another more attractive currency comes along, then they could just dump us in the trash. Even if the dollar falls to the reserve levels of other currencies, it could still have a large short-term effect on the economy. But it may be better for the dollar and the United States in the long term to not be the only reserve currency in such a large share. With Trump as president, his trade war threats, tariffs, and budget deficits, there is a lot of things that do not bode well for the value of the dollar. But because of the craziness in the rest of the world, the dollar has remained relatively strong during his presidency. So things like a dollar collapse and Chinese renminbi becoming the new world currency are still highly unlikely. So do not worry, imported goods that you enjoy will still remain relatively inexpensive, and countries will still be more than happy to lend us money for things like endless war or free college tuition, whichever you prefer the government to spend money on. Thank you so much for watching another episode. You can find new and classic episodes of Mo Money right here on YouTube. For now, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, like me on Facebook. Mo Money, signing out.